Hello, welcome back to another SwansCast match preview. I want to apologise in advance by my croaky voice today. Hopefully you can understand what I'm saying, but a little bit under the weather. But I am joined by Sam, so I'm sure he can do a lot of the talking to tell us all about Birmingham City, of course. Sam from Blues Focus. So thank you for joining me, Sam. You've been here before, but I think you've had a year out and now you're back. So how's things going?
Yeah, it's been good actually. Thanks. Obviously, we had the reset button pressed in League One, and now we've come up with a bit of momentum behind us. And yeah, last time we spoke was that season of the Championship where we had 5 or 6 different managers, and it was very turbulent. And yeah, nice obviously be back in the Championship, and hopefully with as I said, that momentum and new ideas around the place, but also some consistency with what we did last season carrying on to this season.
Yeah, so we'll get into all of that in a second. But before we get there, can you just let everyone know if they would like to hear a little bit more about Birmingham City and check out some of your content on Blues Focus? Where can they find you?
Sure. So yeah, with the Blues Focus podcast, we do all different types of video, whether it be the podcast before and after games, Tommy's vlogs, as well as my match preview. So yeah, if you want to check that out, it's all across social media, whether it be YouTube, Instagram, X, we're across all of it. And yeah, putting out lots of Birmingham content. And if this season's anything to go by the last couple of seasons, there's always some drama around the corner.
Yeah, and we did actually catch up earlier this week. I think it's just Ed in the last hour actually just finished on Talksport 2. We had a little bit of a chat ahead of the game as well on there. So that's on demand. I think if you want to go check that out. Asked a little bit of an interesting question about what team from the Hollywood Three, as they are labeling us all, is going to get to the Premier League first. So we will get into that today. Well, maybe a little bit. We'll see how it goes. Let's go back to last season then, just to sort of get the story of your momentum, I guess. I was actually at the last time we played, which was at St Andrews, and Luke Williams' first game in charge of Swansea in the league, I believe it was, and we drew 2-2 on that day. I think it was a late equaliser from Jordan James. Am I correct in saying?
Yeah, it had to be the Welsh guy,
which
didn't it?
dampened, it dampened our day out, unfortunately, of course. But so this is the first meeting since. So yeah, tell me what's kind of happened in between.
So
I know you
in
kind
that,
of summarised it already, but yeah.
yeah. So I mean, even from the time that we last played Swansea, I mean, Tony Mowbray was the manager then, and he was early into his tenure, but then he had to step away due to health reasons. And then it was Mark Venus that then stepped in, who was Mowbray's assistant. And I think we lost 6 of the 7 games he was in charge for. And then Gary Rowett came in for the final few games of the season. But unfortunately, it was too late for him to save us. So we dropped down to League One, for the first time. I think it was in 30 years, something like that we were playing third-tier football. And Chris Davis was then appointed manager of Birmingham. And he's someone that has worked at Swansea before. I mentioned it. That he worked with Brendan Rodgers, in that time.
He was linked with the return as well for many months before we ended up settling on some of our other managers. But he never, by all accounts, he didn't want the gig. So he's now with you guys.
Yeah, and he chose to come to Birmingham, and I think with Birmingham, obviously the proposition that we had, I suppose the amount of money to spend in League One, and it was that real aim of kind of win or bust, wasn't it, for getting out of League One with the money that we did spend, and thankfully we got out of there in record-breaking fashion, getting 111 points. And although a lot of people say, oh, yeah, you should have gone up with the amount of money that you spent in that, I think for Blues fans it was just so refreshing to see a style of football where we were dominant, whether it be with the ball or scoring goals, because we just haven't had that for so long. In the Championship, it was just trying to keep our heads above water, and so many different managers per season. But now it looks like we've come back into the Championship with that bit of stability. And although we've had a pretty mediocre start, I would say there are still positives to take from it. I mean, the start of the season, we looked electric, but I feel like with some of the new signings that have come in, they're still kind of getting to know each other and gel. So it's really that process of, getting familiar with the new signings and finding what formula works best for us.
Yeah, completely understand. I think I'd be a hypocrite if I didn't say similar regarding what we've done this season. Unexpected from our part in terms of how much we've spent, and we'll see where it goes. But I think if you're a fan of the club, it happens to, at the end of the day, you want to see your club be successful no matter how it comes. But both things can be true, isn't it? People can say you need to go up with that sort of money spent, but also it's nice to enjoy the football that you're watching and what you're seeing on the pitch. So that's what you love about football at the end of the day. So do you think overall, do you think it was a good thing that you got relegated? Do you think it would be in the same part of the journey and the building process had that not happened? Or do you think you perhaps would have been further along had you stayed in the Championship?
I think this conversation kind of lends its hand to the decision we made at the start of the season when we got relegated, when we sacked John Eustace, because, if John Eustace had the sort of consistent funding and support from the board, then maybe we could have found ourselves, in the top 6 by the end of that season. But then just because of the different managers that we had, there was just so much turbulence. And then, yes, we pressed that reset button, but it was in League One. So in that way, I think relegation was a good thing. It certainly would have been a bad thing had the new owners not been in. So if it was BSHL, who we had before, the chairman, where we didn't know who he was and we were just kind of living off free agents and loan deals, then it would have been a real struggle to get back up to the Championship. But I feel like the time that we did get relegated probably did benefit us because of the financial investment that we had on board. So there's definitely two ways of looking at it. And it's just, nice to see that obviously we're back in the Championship now as well. And there was a lot of bookmakers that were saying like we're the favourites, but I suppose the Birmingham pessimist a little bit in me still trying to temper them expectations, especially with the season that we've had, the start of it. We're a few games in, but I feel like already within a few games there are some of these fans thinking, the Championship's going to be significantly tougher than what League One was because of the level of opposition and the amount of experience in the league as well.
Yeah, I think, to be fair, I thought you'd have a good season, and I think you are to be looking that way. I think you're right to say it's early days, but I would be shocked to see you not challenging up the top, like top half at least. You know what I mean? I think I think you've looked good. I watched the first game actually against Leicester, and was quite impressed with what I saw. So I was a bit like, oh yeah, they're going to come and do an Ipswich, but early days, isn't it? Early days. So can you kind of explain a little bit to me what we would expect to see from Birmingham City on the pitch going into this game?
So this has been a bit of a cause for concern with Birmingham, with not us having a lot of shots. It's been a lot of possession football, but not a lot of shots. And I think from the mood that I've seen from Swansea fans, this has been something that you guys have had before, with different managers.
Sounds like you're telling me like everything I've watched for the last God knows how long, to be honest. It's just like, that's how life will over as a Swans fan.
It's very much this sort of patient possession philosophy, but the Blues fans are kind of getting a bit tired of it because it's that whole thing of, yes, the Championship is tougher than League One, so it's going to be harder to break down these teams that kind of settle in, especially if they get the first goal, because we found ourselves behind in the last 3 Championship games. And yes, it was pretty miraculous the way that we managed to beat Blackburn in the way that we did, scoring in the 91st minute and 98th minute. But besides that, against Leicester, when they got the first goal, they looked pretty comfortable. And the same with Stoke as well. So I think it's a thing that the first 15, 20 minutes is going to be really influential for the way that the pattern of the game goes. Because if we get that first goal and then we're in the ascendancy with that sold out crowd, then they're going to get behind us. But if Swansea get the first goal, there could be a bit of apprehension within the air and kind of thinking same old story. So it's been possession football so far, but I think the first goal is really telling within the fixture.
No, like I said, it sounds like you're talking the blueprint of many Swans managers' approaches to the game. And when we have fallen behind historically in recent history, when teams then are protecting that lead, just can't break them down or haven't been able to. Alan Sheehan's a bit different. There is still, overall, we're one of the top teams in the Championship for possession on a general scale. Nowhere near where we were in the past with some other managers, but he does change things a bit, and he's a little bit more direct in areas and sort of rigid. Definitely made us harder to beat, which is probably something that we needed to happen. Doesn't always pay off, of course, but on the whole, that's done quite well for us so far under him. Okay, I know you've obviously had a few changes in the summer and a few changes since we last played. So can you talk about maybe a couple of the key players that we would expect to see in this game?
So in this game, I think the consistent figures within the side, the likes of Ryan Alsop in goal, has been brilliant with his distribution. I think that's something to look out for, because with Alsop, he's a great shot stopper, but then also with the ball at his feet, he can pick out some of these diagonal passes to the wingers and just completely cut out the midfield. So that's something that I think we need to utilise more, and I'm hoping to see, especially at home. Christoph Clara, centre-back, newly appointed captain, has been a real leader for us since he came in from Darmstadt last season, and he really looked like a level above in League One. In the Championship so far, I would say he's been our best defender, but now he's actually playing on the left side instead of the right side, in a little bit of an adjustment that we've had. And with Clara, he's brilliant defensive-wise, but still taking a bit of time maybe to adapt to playing on the left instead of the right. So that's something that Swansea could exploit. Paik Sung Ho in the midfield has been someone that has come under a little bit of criticism from the Blues fans this season because of the fact that he's not playing forward enough. there's a lot of sideways passing, a lot of backwards passes, kind of maintaining the tempo, but not a lot of line breaking passes. So that's something that Blues fans are looking out for. And Jay Stansfield up top, the £20 million man that, again, League One, very good last season, and Championship, he's certainly shown glimpses of the player that he was in the season when we got relegated, because he was only shining light really in that season. And he's got a couple goals in his name to the Championship. And I think with Stansfield, it's just about getting the ball to him in the right areas. And once he's in those right areas, bearing down on goal, you're pretty certain that he's going to score, but it is just about finding him. So hopefully, Pate can make those passes that find Stansfield, and we can have some success in that way.
One other player I want to touch on is former Swan, only on loan, but still put the jersey on, and that's Ethan Laird. I've heard a lot of fans, not even necessarily Birmingham fans, just claiming he is one of the top right backs in the league. Obviously, he had a good stint with us, but he got recalled in January, so he was a lot earlier on in his development back then. So can you talk to us about his importance, and do you think he would be someone that Swansea need to watch in this one?
With Ethan Laird, I think when he went down to League One, you kind of look at him and you think, is he going to stick around? Because he's someone that's looking to play Championship football, and will he stay around for the year? But he did, and he was one of our standout players. I feel like he was the most improved player from the relegation season to the promotion season, just because of the freedom he was given in the team, really. Because where we were keeping a lot of the ball in League One, Ethan Laird as a right back actually played as like a right winger in possession, because we were pushing up so high and really suffocating teams. And he got a lot of success, getting in behind the defence and delivering a nice cross. But I feel like with Ethan Laird, I'd say he's like a Premier League level athlete, but it's just about that football IQ. And I feel like in the Championship, this is a real make or break season for him, whether he's going to be part of the long-term project or not, because we've signed Bright Asai Samuel, who's a right back who, was playing football for Fenerbahce last season under Jose Mourinho. And for the Ipswich game, he actually came in to replace Ethan Laird. And a lot of people were like, oh, Laird out the team straight away. But then Alex Cochrane got injured. So what happened was that Ethan Laird played on the left. And I believe that's where he played in his earlier days of his career. And he looked pretty good in that left back position. So I feel like wing back is one of those positions that is up for grabs. And whether Ethan Laird can, take his opportunities or not, time will tell. But with the game against Stoke, he came off after 60 minutes. And now that Cochrane's match fit, it's a bit of a 50-50 whether he's going to start. But he's someone that certainly improved from the relegation season and is well within the mix for a starting position. It's just about whether he can stake his claim on the opportunities he gets.
I think Swansea fans will have their fingers crossed that perhaps he gets dropped for this one. We just experienced a former player breaking our hearts against Hull City with Ollie McBurney scoring. So it happens all the time. It's one of those. We've had a couple of years where it's been okay, but it seems like it's come back now. Okay, moving on then. So if I flip that question a little bit, and sometimes it's tricky, it depends how much you know about our team, to be fair, but I like to put on the spot. What one Swansea player would you pick that could perhaps go into Birmingham to make them a better team?
I would say from what I've seen so far, like he's a new signing for you, Ethan Galbraith. I think it's been superb. And someone that's sort of catching a lot of headlines because he was picked up from it was picked up from Leyton Orient, obviously his Manchester United background, and I remember actually seeing him play last season. I think Leyton Orient beat Derby in the cup, and I watched him in that game and I thought, this guy's definitely going to go on to do great things. And the fact that he was playing as sort of like a fullback then, but now he looks like he's playing in midfield for you guys, just shows like his capabilities on the ball and his versatility as well. And I feel like he's someone that could cause problems for us in the midfield, because where we've got this 4-2-3-1 shape, we've had Pekin Iwata holding in midfield for the whole of League One, and now all of a sudden people are saying that Iwata could drop out the team for Doyle, and because of this movement within the midfield, and we don't know who's going to start and who's not, I really feel like the midfield could be somewhere where Swansea can take the game to us, because we're not as settled as a team as what we once were.
Maybe that could go both ways for us. I think we're likely to start the same three midfielders for the third time in a week. Obviously, we had the midweek match against Nottingham Forest last night, which went, very well for us at the end. Galbraith played the 90 minutes there and was quite influential. But 3 games in a week is tricky, especially early in the season like this. I wonder if that will show a little bit, especially obviously travelling away at the weekend. And I think Alan Sheehan, our manager, was a little bit... he had a bit of a dig at Sky regarding the scheduling. Obviously, putting us on telly on a Wednesday and then 12 o'clock on a Saturday is not the kindest fixture scheduling that they could have done, but it is what it is. We'll see what happens there. Okay, so looking at your recent form, it is 3 defeats in a row, one of them in the cup. So what do you think in this one? Do you think it's going to be a chance for you to bounce back? What's your prediction going to be?
Yeah, so with our home league form, like in the last year and a half, we haven't lost. So it's been really strong for us, and especially with the home support that we've had as well. It's been sell out most games, and the fans have really got behind the team. Because I remember in the early Chris Davis days, as soon as a manager comes to Birmingham and starts trying to play possession football, there's a bit of like a worry that goes around the ground, because we've seen it before backfire, with Zola or Rooney, and all of a sudden you're like, oh no, not again. But it transpired very quickly that Chris Davis was capable and had the what am I trying to say? Managerial nous, that's the one. To figure things out and really get hold of games. And with a home game against Swansea, I feel like this is a good chance for us to really make an impression, because Swansea have started really well. You guys are 7th place, progressed in the League Cup, beat Nottingham Forest. So I imagine confidence is high in your camp. And I feel like it's one of those statement games that if we do get a victory, it will kind of silence some of the critics, because if we can beat a decent Swansea side, then we can really push on again. So I feel like it's going to be a real measuring stick to where we're at this point in the season against the side that's done well so far.
I think it's a statement game for either team, isn't it? Really, in terms of if they can get the 3 points, I think either team sticking their hands up to say they mean perhaps a bit of business. So what would you say the score's going to be?
So score-wise, because it's funny actually, because I saw the other day that Swansea Birmingham games have produced a lot of goals. In the last 4 games, there's been 17 goals, which is quite ridiculous.
0-0 incoming then.
So I'm thinking for this time it's going to be low scoring, isn't it? I'd say that we'd nick it 1-0, and the goal would come from a second half substitute. I'd say Marvin Dutch would be the one that I think could score, because he's someone that's come to the club with a lot of pedigree. He's played Bundesliga football for the last couple of seasons, represented the German national team, and you put him in the category of still trying to acclimatise to the surroundings and his teammates. And I feel like with Blues, especially if it's still 0-0 in the latter stages, we're going to try and go a bit direct. And because he's a physical presence in the box, I'm hoping he can win a couple headers, and that's the way that we get the 3 points.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a low-scoring affair as well. We generally have been for a while now. I think since Alan Sheehan's come in, it's quite often low-scoring, and 1 goal wins whichever way it might go. But I think maybe we can get a point. I think it'll be disappointing. Well, I think it's going to be hard, because 3 games in a week, especially with Premier League opposition in the middle, and as much as we stocked our midfield with transfers in the summer, a couple of them have got injured. So we don't have the luxury of perhaps as much rotation as we normally would for this sort of game. And all of our midfield options are really quite decent now, even the ones that are injured. So I'm just wondering how leggy they will be, really. But I think it would be good if they can take the momentum from that win to mean something in the league, because that's how it actually becomes valuable then, in terms of having a cup run and getting these big moments over the line. So I'm going to say 1-0. I think that'll be a good point for us if we can bring back a point. I always like to live by the motto of don't lose your, win your home games, don't lose your away games, and that sets you up. I know you're not going to always do that, but generally speaking, I think that's a good way to progress through the season. So, well, thank you very much, Sam. I do like to end on one off-football topic question, just to throw a little bit of a spanner in the works. So, if you had to visit Wales, where would you like to go and why?
Well, I have visited Wales in the past, actually, many times. It's somewhere that we've gone on family holidays, and one of the favourite ones that we stayed at was Rhayader. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right.
100% sure I've been there myself, but it's probably a little bit of a Welsh.
It's very rural.
You've done a good job.
It's a very rural place in Wales, and I loved it there. And I stayed there when I was doing my A-level photography exams. It was kind of round about the times of that, and took lots of nice pictures of the countryside then, and used them on final project and got pretty good mark from it. So I always remember sort of visiting the rural parts of Wales for that. And there was one time when I went during COVID and went to, I suppose, the opposition side. We'll just say that.
Well, yeah. No, I think there's a lot of really great places in Wales. So I like to ask the question, because a lot of people come from different areas, and I'm from the south, of course, being a Swansea fan, and like the place you've just mentioned, I've never been there, but it's interesting to hear how different people see the country and where they've been and what sort of memories they have. So thank you very much for that, and well done on your grades in your photography A-level. So I'm glad that the Welsh countryside was able to sort of help you out with that. But there we go. Thank you very much, Sam, and good luck, obviously, for the rest of the season after the weekend. Can you just remind everyone where they can find all of the content on Blues Focus, please?
Yeah, sure. We're just like all across pretty much all social medias where we do the podcast, which gets also uploaded to Spotify, as well as like the match preview show and Tommy's vlogs go out on YouTube as well. And we recently collaborated for a Talk Sport interview where they asked us that question at the end. And I didn't mean to take a dig at Swansea, by the way. It was one of those ones where you get put on the spot and you don't want to say like the opposition club. If
you've got to back your team and got to sell it, haven't you? That's why I just came back.
What I would say about Swansea, they've been much sensibly run than what we have over the years. So I do give you credit. For that.
I think you're right, but I think a lot of the fans probably not agree with you with that. We got taken over in November, and it's just the regime before wasn't the most popular, let's just say. But when you compare it to the likes of what's happening at Sheffield Wednesday, for example, I always like to remind everyone the perspective of the two examples there, and it's definitely far more extreme for us to get riled up about. Do you know what I mean? So, but anyway, I digress. That's another podcast altogether. Thank you very much for joining me. As always, the links would be below if you'd like to go check out the channel Blues Focus before or after the game. If you want to go check out what they're saying about Swansea, you might want to see if we've won, what they say about our performance. Maybe they're having a moan at the referee, or maybe you want to go and tune in to see how they tell us how bad we were playing in the game. So, but go check that out, support them, and I'm sure we'll catch up with Sam later in the season.
Yeah, that'd be fantastic.
Thank you very much, and see you soon.